let's welcome Jacob Heiser. So Jacob and I go all the way back to being in the Lincoln Park congregation in Michigan, and his whole family went to the same congregation as me and my ex-husband, and my ex-husband was friends with Jacob's brother, and we just found each other on Facebook. He actually commented on something, and then I was like, Jacob Heiser, what? I need to contact him. So I was like, I contacted him and I saw how much he was thriving in life. And I just wanted to bring him on because he has quite a story of just how much he's grown in the last 20 years that I've seen him. No, it's been like 14 years, I think, since I've seen you, maybe 15.
I moved to New York 18 years ago.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it was like 2004 that I might have seen you for a little bit, and then I kind of just off the radar didn't see you anymore, because that was the first year that I got married, and then I didn't see you anymore. So I also want to address that Jacob's parents are by far the coolest Jehovah's Witness parents I had ever met, and I was really drawn to them. Jacob's dad is an elder in the congregation, and his mom is like such a powerful feminist in the congregation, and they have very just powerful demeanors, and they just are very self-expressive, which is very uncommon in the organization. So I was really just drawn to their energy and just their being of the flamboyancy of being the human being that they are. So I really love that. And they just added like a little bit of spark to the Lincoln Park congregation. And I know that sounds like so weird, but they were cool parents, at least as a person from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
So like I said, I knew Jacob. How old were you back in 2014? You were 14, 15? 15.
Wait, in 2004?
Four, yeah, 2004.
In 2004, I would have been 20.
20. Why was I thinking you were like 15? No, you were 20. Okay. So
Yeah.
walk us back to being raised as a Jehovah's Witness and then getting baptized and the story around that.
What? Sorry, I didn't catch the full question.
No, I said, walk us through your story of your parents coming in and then you growing up as a Jehovah's Witness along with your siblings. Just walk us through that story with us. So first, talk to us about how your parents became Jehovah's Witnesses.
So my parents became Jehovah's Witnesses through door knocking, through ministering, door-to-door field service, which is, surprising, but it's interesting. My dad went to seminary school to become a Catholic priest from the time he was 10 or 11 years old, I think. Like, he was back in the generation, like, I think in the 60s, when his parents literally sent him away to Catholic school, where he lived. He lived there, and he went to seminary school until through college. So he was, slated to become a Catholic priest. And he's never told me stories, but he's alluded to things where he said, I saw things that happened and that were happening within that institution that I was not okay with, that were not related to the God that I had come to know. He's like, and I knew I could absolutely not be part of the Catholic religion. Mm-hmm. So my dad left Catholicism, and my mom was raised Lutheran. So, my parents, when they were about, I think they were about 30 or 32 maybe, or maybe a little older, I don't know. They were in their 30s, somewhere in their 30s. And I don't think they really had a religion at that point, but they both felt connected to religion or spirituality for them at the time. And somebody came and knocked on the door. And my mom, basically, just to be nice, like, Midwestern nice, gave them some money, like, oh, here's a donation, thinking it was like, okay, now they'll go away. Like, oh, I gave them a little bit of money for their magazines and they'll just go away. Little did she realize at the time, that's an invitation to come back and visit you again. So the witnesses definitely came back and followed up. And it led to my parents studying the Bible with the Jehovah's Witnesses. And then it led to them getting baptized. So when they started in the religion, I wasn't born yet, but my oldest brother was 5. I think he was about 5. And then our middle brother and sister, who are twins, I think they were around 2 or 3 years old. So that was kind of what brought them into the religion. And then, I don't know, over the years, I guess they got really invested because my dad's been an elder for years. I don't even know how many years at this point, years, 20, 30 years as an elder. So that was the start to their journey. So I was born into the religion. It was all I knew from the time I could form words and sentences throughout my whole childhood. So my personality has always been really driven. I'm just a very driven person. Whatever I'm doing, I want to be my best at it. So that even applied to the religion, and for anyone who knows anything about the religion, when you're in the religion, it's a very close community. So as a kid growing up, I had this juxtaposition of public school, which for me was horrible. And then I had the community of the religion, which, when you're a child, especially, is the only view I had of it as a child was just love, community, friendship, kindness, people that will go out of their way for you. So I was really highly involved. I started giving talks on stage. I think my first talk was when I was 7 years old, like in the back room.
The back school, yeah.
What did they call it?
The back school.
The back school, sure.
Yeah.
So I think I was about 7 when I gave my first talk. So that's how I got involved. And then by the time I got baptized when I think I was maybe 11 years old. I can't quite, 11 or 12 is when I got baptized. And it just kind of occurred to me at the time as the thing to do. It just seemed like the thing to do. I was at an age where, I could consent, and it was my choice. At that time, it was my choice. And to be completely honest, I really don't remember if my parents pressured me. I don't remember them pressuring me to do it, to be honest. At the time, it was like puberty hadn't really hit yet. I didn't have any other views of the world except bullying in school. So I was like, I don't want to be part of that. So I got baptized. And I think I started, what do they call it? Auxiliary pioneer. I auxiliary pioneered shortly after I got baptized.
Wow.
And jumped right into it. So that was my journey, being raised in the religion and then getting baptized.
Wow. And I'm gonna cut you off for a second. So your oldest brother, what's the age difference between you two?
Between my oldest brother and I, there's 7 years.
Okay, so when you got baptized when you were 11, I know that he got disfellowshipped at a certain point before I even met your family, and then Brianna also got disfellowshipped, who's your sister, who I was really close to. Actually, she was one of my closer friends in the congregation before I got disfellowshipped. So, how old were you when he got disfellowshipped?
I was 13. I was 13 when he got disfellowshipped.
So you were at that time, you were a regular auxiliary pioneering on occasion and still going to school. What was the family structure like when he got disfellowshipped? Was he still living at home at the time? So he was 20.
So he was, you know what? Actually, I was 14. I was 14 when he got disfellowshipped because he was 21. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. Very close to that age, if not. So yeah, I was about 14. He was about 21, and he was living on his own because he was married. Very typical Jehovah's Witness. like turn 18, turn 19 years old, and get married, because you
Of
want to have
course.
sex. You're at
Of course.
sexual maturity,
Of
and the
course.
only way you can do that in God's eyes is if you're
Right.
married. So he got married as soon as he could, basically.
Okay.
I think, and then by 21 he was divorced and disfellowshipped, and that was,
Okay.
my God, that was heartbreaking. That was devastating, and humiliating. Really, it's such a humiliating process. Disfellowshipping. It's like the person being disfellowshipped knows the announcement is going to happen, and they're still expected to be present at the congregation. And then if you have family, like us, so
Mhm.
all of us were present at the congregation the night that they announced him being disfellowshipped. And I remember just like eyes shielded to the ground, silent, running out the moment that meeting was over.
Your brother was there as well.
Yeah, yeah, he was there. He was there. He was probably sitting in the back. I think they make you sit in the back.
Okay.
Um, so yeah,
Did
it's
and did your family shun him at the time?
yeah, yeah, pretty much. It wasn't, over the years. It's become complete distance. But at first, it's like, okay, well, we don't invite you to family functions, and we don't hang out, and we don't, just call you to, just catch up about life. But no, it was definitely like, oh, this relationship is cut off.
Okay.
Um,
So then
yeah,
walk us back. So then you were around 14 when that happened. And then what was your stance in the religion? When, and I also would love to talk about when you figured out you were attracted to men. Was that during that time?
yes. So okay. So my stance in the religion at that time, um, at that time, I'm not gonna get graphic, but at that time, I was like 13, so puberty was setting for sure.
Exactly.
So I was definitely like, like any 13-year-old boy, having thoughts, and I didn't know anyone that was gay. And back in 1996, 1995, 97, there wasn't mainstream gay celebrities, icons. There wasn't people out, you know talking about their lives as someone who's gay. So I really didn't have a concept of gay, but I definitely knew I felt an attraction to men. So I didn't really know how to make sense of it, and I wasn't sexual at the time. I had never done anything sexual at 13 years old. So for me, it was just kind of like, oh, like there's these thoughts. I realize I see guys and I think that they're good looking. And I feel something about that. But I definitely didn't bring that up. I definitely didn't tell anyone that. I didn't share that with anyone. So it wasn't until I think when I was about 14, then I had access to the internet and things changed. So by the time I was 16, I definitely knew I was gay when I was 16. And that was my first time. At 16 was like my first time having intimacy with another man. So then it was like, it was like, okay, that's happened. Like, this is the thing. Like, I'm gay.
So what was it like still being baptized in the congregation as an elder's son with at this time, were you the only one still living at home? Brianna and Aaron had been married and they were off, and
No, so at this time,
because
my
Aaron didn't get
brother
married till
Aaron,
later. He was still living at home.
correct. My brother Aaron, when I was 16, my brother Aaron still lived at home. He was in the process of getting ready to buy a house, but he hadn't quite yet. So it was him and I, and he was about 21, and I was 16. So it was really difficult. It was really difficult. And what's crazy is, here 20 something years later, I realize I still have these, um, God, what would you call them? Like, I still have these things that I do, um, unconsciously, um, that stemmed from that time. So what it was like was living a double life. I mean, it was crazy because I had put myself out in the congregation so much. I had a lot of privileges in the congregation. I was giving talks, I was pioneering, holding the mics. I was at every single event there was. I only, for the most part, I only had Jehovah's Witness friends, community. Of course, you have some people in school that are like your friends, but I didn't hang out with them. So it was really difficult because I was basically teaching myself that who I am, and my interests have to be hidden, that they're not okay, that there's something wrong with me, that I'm a sinner, that I have to hide the things that I like, my passions, my interests, that I can't talk about them. So I really learned to become very secretive, very, very secretive, which as an adult now in a healthy relationship, my God, there's so much work that has to be done around that to really learn to open up to people and to really learn to accept myself. Because at the time it was like denial of who I am, lying about who I am, not opening up to anybody, having close friends that I see all the time and I was friends with for years, that I could never share that part of myself. So there was a lot of shame, a lot of shame. Definitely suicidal thoughts, for sure. I had suicidal thoughts as a teenager. And yeah, it was
Wow.
it was tough. It was really tough.
So during that experience that you had when you were 16, was your brother reinstated back? I mean, I know that you said you're close to him now. Was Brianna disfellowshipped at this time? What was the situation like? Did you talk to anybody, any family member about this?
So interesting. Good. Well, so when I was 16, I think I can't remember. I'll try to do my best to remember. I don't know if I've just like blocked it out or what, but there was a point at 16 where I was supposed to go talk to the elders, um, because I don't know if I requested a meeting or if they said they wanted to talk to me. I genuinely can't remember how it happened that I was supposed to have a meeting with the elders. So one night we were getting ready to go to the meeting, and I was in my bedroom, and I had my bedroom door closed, and I literally snuck out of my window to run away. Which to this day, I don't know how I did it. That window was like this big. That was sheer determination and will
Jehovah
to
was
just
with you.
somehow I squeezed my whole body out of that window,
Wow.
and yeah, I ran away. But it was funny because at the time, that's when cell phones like first came out. So I actually when I ran away, I took my mom's cell phone with me. Um, I took her cell phone with me. And so I got about, I don't know, 7 minutes away, maybe. And she called me. And she,
7 minutes.
because I can literally remember where I was at when she called. So it must have been like a 5, 7 minute run away from the house. Um, and and she was really upset. She was really upset at me. Um, and she said some things. I don't know if I'm ready to repeat right at this moment, but she said some things that were just very upsetting. She said some things that were manipulating, is what it was. She said some things as a form of manipulation to try to get me to come back home. And I was like, I'm not coming home right now. I was like, I'm not coming home right now. And so she was like, fine. She's like, why don't you go to your brothers? Why don't you go to your brothers and talk to him? So Jonah was disfellowshipped still. Jonah never got reinstated. My oldest brother
Okay.
never got reinstated. So she was like, go to your brothers, so at least I know you're safe. I was like, fine. So I did end up going to my brothers, and so he was the first person that I came out to, and he was just so loving and so caring. He really was so non-judgmental and accepting, and I think that was the first time it opened my eyes to like, oh my God, someone loves me for who I am.
Wow.
So that was a huge shift for me, a really big shift for me, that moment.
Wow.
And then I ended up, I don't know, after a couple hours or whatever, I ended up going back home. I was 16 and I didn't have many options. As supportive and loving as my brother was, he wasn't trying to take a 16-year-old in and take care of me. So I went back home, and for the next few years, I continued on in the religion. Um, I think I was so at the time, let me think. Yeah, so I think I did end up talking to the elders, and I was in such good standing in the congregation. Um, and no one knew, like literally nobody. I hadn't told anyone about anything that I had done, or that I was gay, or that I had, intimacy with men. So because of that, they privately reproved me. So that's, they stripped me of my privileges for a temporary time. Um, and that moment just led to my exit strategy, basically. So for the next 2 years, I was still attending meetings. Um, I really don't remember if I got privileges back or not. I really don't remember, to be honest. It was a long time ago. But either way, by the time I was 18, so now by the time I was 18, maybe my sister had been disfellowshipped at that point. I think she might have gotten disfellowshipped. But I still really didn't. That was interesting. It's so weird. That's such like a distant memory. The memory of my brother being disfellowshipped is very clear to me. It was such a defining moment. The memory of my sister getting disfellowshipped, like I remember it happened, but I don't remember a lot of details, emotional or otherwise, around it. But
Because
when
I
I
know
was
she was still married to Andy at the time when
yeah,
she got disfellowshipped. I remember she told me that. So she was married and still going to the meetings. And here, I'm not sure if Andy at that time, no, I think he became an elder actually in the process of when my ex-husband and I, when Chris and I went to the Kingdom Hall. So I think that Andy, he was such a young elder. He became an elder at like 26, 27 years old. For in our congregation, that was a very young elder. So he was like the zealous elder, and she ended up getting disfellowshipped, which was kind of crazy. So you guys, and I think she got reinstated pretty quickly. So did you actually also come out to her as well when
um,
she got disfellowshipped?
so you know what I did. Okay, I did come out to her. I forgot about this. So when I was sometime between 18 and 19 years old, I was still living at my parents' house. Um, and or maybe I had moved out and moved back in for a short time. And yeah, actually I remember now. I was 19. I had moved out, moved back in for a short time. And for some reason, my sister, she had found some photos that I had, back when we actually printed photos out. She found some photos I had, and it was me. There were some photos of like me and this guy that I was dating. And so I remember her asking me like, what is this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I mean, I'm gay. And and I remember her trying to ask me like, well, is there something like, are you still open to Jehovah? And without even hesitating, I was like, no, no, like my heart is hardened over that. I was like, no. Um, so yeah, I didn't. So that's how I came out to her. I totally forgot about that until you asked.
Wow.
Um, and I think, oh, and you know what? Yeah, I think I came out to her because I had already come out to my parents.
So what was that like and how old were you then?
That was dramatic. When I came out to them, I'm pretty sure I was 19. Yeah, I must have been 19 because I remember I had a fake ID at the time. And I went to the bar after.
Awesome.
So I was 19 and my mom called me into we had a little office my dad built in the basement with our computer and a little desk and stuff. And so my mom called me into the office and she was like, come here, I want to talk to you. I was like, okay. So I go into the office and my mom, who always is like, I don't know how to use a computer. I don't know how to turn a computer on. I don't know anything about computers. All of a sudden was like, so I searched the history on the computer and I was like, oh, okay. And she points to a porn site and it was like, what is this? And at that time, so now, I'm at this point now, I'm 19 years old. I had been working since I had a paper route since I was 7, and I got a job at McDonald's at 15, and then just kept working at other places until then. So now here I am at 19. At that point, I was bartending and serving tables. I had a good savings account. I had my own car that I paid for. So I was like, I've got a car and I've got money in the bank. So I was kind of like, you don't have any power with me. So she was like, what is this? And I was like, what do you think it is? I'm gay. And she did not react well. She definitely did not react well. And because of that, I said, okay, well then I'm leaving. I'm moving out tonight. Like I'm not spending a night here with you speaking to me the way that you're speaking to me. Absolutely not. And so I grabbed some things and left. And I still remember the moment of them sitting on the couch. It was such an interest, looking back now, it was such an interesting power shift. It was such an interesting shift of power because I remember standing by the door with whatever bag or whatever things I had, and I remember both of them just sitting on the couch, looking just sullen and helpless and sad. And they were like, "We can talk about this." And I was like, "No, I'm past the point of I'm past the point of wanting to talk about this," and I left. Um,
Did they make you go to the meetings from the time that you talked to the elders and you got your privileges taken away to the time that you left? Did they make you?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, yep. It was definitely if you're going to live in this house, you're going to go to the meetings, So, but by the time I was 18, so, because that happened when I was 16. So there was those 2
Exactly.
years from 16 to 18 where I'm not a legal adult yet.
Right.
So there's only so much, freedom that I have. So, I was still going to the meetings at that time. Um, but by the time I was 18, then it was like, oh, I've got to work tonight. Oh, I've got this class. Oh, I've got this thing. Oh, blah, blah, blah. So I definitely skated out of the meetings as much as possible when I was 18. And so
And
that's why by the time I was 19 and like came out or was outed and came out, um, that's when I moved out and then was done. And then I didn't go to any more meetings.
did you actually tell your dad that you were gay, or was that something your mom told him after finding the
She
porn?
told him. She told him.
And did you guys have a
Yeah.
conversation about that?
No. Mm-mm. Nope. So it was like I knew he knew. He was there next to my mom supporting her. Um,
So he never really
and
said anything to you after you packed your bags and left, and when you were 19, they just kind of like looked at you with a sullen face and
yeah. And I remember the one thing that I don't know, he said or my mom said as I was leaving was, she was like, Dad saw a lot of things happen in the Catholic Church when he was younger. And if you want to talk to him about things, if something's happened to you, I think because of whatever experiences he saw happen in that seminary school, I think my parents thought I had been sexually abused at some point, which
mm,
I mean, I hadn't, unless I somehow blocked it out, but I haven't, wasn't sexually abused. So in their mind, I think it was like, oh, if you're gay, you must have been sexually abused. And I'm
got
like,
it.
no, I wasn't sexually abused. So that was really it. It was just kind of like, you know, dad saw things happen when, to people when he was there. And if you need to talk about that, and I'm like, it's not like that for me,
And I'm
you
sure as
know?
an elder, he probably heard lots of cases where there was sexual abuse and that he had to like just put it in the file and actually not talk to the police about it. So he's like, if you've been sexually assaulted or abused, and maybe we can talk to the elders about it, put you on as another sexual victim of the organization that never goes to the authorities. Such bullshit. But
Maybe. God,
I'm
it's
glad,
horrid to think that. I hope not, but it's
yeah,
possible.
I hope not either. So at 19, you left, and walk us through like how you got involved in the beauty industry, because this is like such a big part of your life right now.
Yeah, so at 19, I really had no direction. I was working, like I said, I was working as a bartender. I worked a couple days a week in an elementary school as a parapro. And it was just pretty much party time otherwise for me, just party, party, party. And so one of my friends, she asked me if I wanted to take an aesthetics course. And at the time, I remember saying to her, "What is that? I've never heard of that word before, aesthetics." I remember her exact response. She said, "It's like makeup and stuff." And I thought, okay, well, that sounds cool. That could be fun. I've always been into like fashion and I loved watching makeover shows growing up on TLC. I was like, well, that sounds fun. So I went and took this aesthetics course with her, and then became a licensed esthetician. Didn't actually learn anything about makeup in that course, to my dismay, but my love of the beauty industry was definitely sparked through that. So I thought, okay, I thought to myself, I'm not going to make a lot of money um, as an esthetician. I said, so I think what I want to do is open up my own salon. So that way I can make some money, and be in the industry. So I went to cosmetology school after that. Went and learned to do hair because I thought if I'm going to own a salon, I'm going to need to know it'll be good if I know how to do these things. So I went and took that cosmetology course. And during that course, we had a lot of like fun little opportunities, like, oh, this hair show and this event that we're doing for the school. So whenever we would have opportunities, I would say, oh, I want to do the makeup. I want to do makeup. And I had zero formal training. Back then, 20 years ago, there wasn't YouTube. There wasn't makeup videos constantly running through your news feed. So it was literally like buy some books, and it was almost more fun because I remember really paying attention to lighting, to bone structure. Being in the beauty industry really taught me to focus on people's most beautiful features and really find the most beautiful aspects of people. So that's something that I really loved about that. So I became a self-taught makeup artist through those couple of years of school. And then as soon as I finished cosmetology, I went into a Mac store, and I was helping, at the time, I was helping my friend pick out some eyeshadows that she wanted to buy. And the woman who worked at the store, she said, "Oh, are you a makeup artist?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." She was like, "Really?" She was like, "Because we're hiring." She's like, "And I would love to diversify the staff and have a guy work here." She's like, "We've only ever had women work here." And she said, "Do you have, do you have any work you can show me? Do you have a resume?" And incidentally, I had photos of makeup that I had done in my car with me because I had just finished cosmetology. So I had put together a book of my work, including the makeup work I had done. So I was like, "Yes, actually I do." So I went out to my car, back at the time, we had a physical book with photos in it and showed her. And she set me up for an interview the following week. And I came in and did the interview and I got hired. So
Wow. Talk about
that
fate,
was,
like handing you the
that
card. Wow.
really,
Jeez.
to this day, I feel like, yes, I chose the beauty industry, but the
It
beauty
chose
industry
you.
chose me. The beauty industry,
Yeah.
absolutely. I didn't set out to be an esthetician. Like, that wasn't my idea. That was brought to me. I went to cosmetology more from a business perspective. Like, oh, as a business person, I better know how to do what my employees know how to do so I can manage
Yeah.
them better.
Jeez.
But makeup was definitely the most the biggest area of interest in beauty for me. I love skincare. I love aesthetics. I just would never wanted to work doing facials all day as my permanent job. And learning skin is the basis of being a good makeup artist, knowing how to take care of
Mhm.
the skin. So,
So you
so that's how I
started
got
working at
started.
Mac, and
Yep.
what happened after that? You weren't going to the
Started.
meetings anymore. You were living on your own.
Yep. Yep. So now I'm out living. Have lived with a friend as a roommate, and was working at Mac. And then a few months later, a friend of mine told me that she was going to move to New York. And she's like, "You should go with me. And you should move to New York with me." And I had already for a couple of years thought about moving out of Michigan. I had thought about moving to Arizona, moving to Florida, um, just to have something different. So I was like, "Okay, like, let's move to New York, whatever, I'll go." I thought, the worst that happens is I move there, I don't like it, and then I come back. So yeah, so I moved to New York shortly after that.
When you were 20, and remind me, did they actually publicly approve you?
No. So I never got publicly approved. I never got this fellowship because I just stopped going.
Oh, so you faded.
And
Got it.
faded, faded. And
Yeah.
because no one knew anything, no one knew that I had a relationship with a guy or anything, that I was like partying before I was 21. Nobody knew any of that stuff. And I never went back to a meeting. So there was no one that had a way to contact me. No one ever sat down and had a conversation with me. No one ever brought evidence of the things that I had done to the congregation. So I just kind of faded out and then moved to New York where I didn't know anybody.
Oh, what a beautiful transition into creating a new life for yourself. And New York is such an accepting, New York City is such an accepting city. So you got put into the center of beauty and acceptance and just freedom. What was that like at 20? A kid in a candy store.
A kid in a candy store. It was so fun. It was crazy. It was exciting. It was wild. Yeah, I did a lot of partying. But also, looking back now, on a more solemn note, I realized a lot of the partying was me trying to avoid
Escape. Escape. Yeah.
escaping. It was
Yeah.
totally escaping. If I was drunk or high, I could easily fall asleep and not stay up all night thinking about, am I going to be punished? Am I going to die in Armageddon? Does God hate me? Have I, turned against God? So it was an easy way to escape. but I was also really angry. Like I was very angry for a few years, definitely from probably 19 until about 23. I remember really having a lot of rage. And it wasn't until I was about 26 that I actually started to do something about it and get help.
Oh, so you ended up going to therapy when you were around 26.
Yeah, yeah. So, so there was a few years when I first got to New York, I was working as a bartender. I was like doing some hair as freelance. Um, and I really wanted to get back into doing makeup and hair, but I didn't really know where to start. And then I ended up networking, meeting somebody who worked in daytime TV, and then I ended up getting an opportunity. And so I started working a little bit in daytime TV, and I did that for a couple of years. That was that wasn't full time. It was like 2 to 3 days a week. So the money was okay, but it wasn't enough. Like there wasn't enough work. So after a couple of years of that, I ended up going back to Mac so I could get a full-time job, benefits, and started working at Mac again. And that was nice because I saw career potential for myself. I saw the ability to move up in that corporate setting. And then when I was 26, I saw a friend of mine who, I mean, I had a total transformation. Like she went from being someone that I kind of kept at like arm's length distance. Like we were cool. I didn't want to be on her bad side, but I didn't necessarily trust her or want to spend a lot of time with her. Just suddenly after a few months, um, just being like, what has happened with you? Like you are a new person. Like you are this new, amazing, inspired person with this just radiant glow about you. And she was like, oh, thank you. And so we talked about a lot of stuff she was up to. And she told me about this personal development workshop that she took. She's like, I took this personal development workshop and it changed everything for me. She's like, really, it changed my whole mindset and my career and the trajectory of my life. So I was like, where do I sign up? Like, how do I do this? So I went and I took this workshop and it absolutely changed my life. Completely changed my life.
What is it called?
It's not around anymore. At the time, it was called Personal Dynamics, um, and it was basically it's like a workshop about creating. It's basically about creating a vision for your life, but realizing that in order to get to that vision, there's a lot of shit that's in the way, a lot of trauma in the way, a lot of limiting conversations, a lot of limiting beliefs that are in the way. And so then they put you through different experiential exercises. So in that moment, you have a reaction, you have a trigger, you have a memory, um, and then you see what that is, and then you work through that. And so you really start, so through this workshop, you really start to see your belief systems, your limiting beliefs, your triggers, your reactions, and then you get support from the trainers and the coaches on how to be about it, on how to really transform who you're being about it. So it's not a therapy. I mean, there is therapeutic work that happens in the course for sure, but it's more, it's transformation. It's transformation work, yeah. Like there's a lot of different transformational programs and workshops out there, and it was a transformational workshop, very heart emotional based, which for me was great. I loved it, absolutely loved it. And I mean, through that workshop, like years of anger and pain were stripped away. That was the first time I felt like I had a purpose for my life, and I had never really thought that since leaving religion. Like that was the first time I was like, oh my gosh, there's something more I'm here for, and it's not to serve some made up God who wants to punish me for who I authentically am. So it changed everything. Like that changed everything. And then I started taking more personal development and transformational workshops, reading a lot of personal development books after that. and literally saw the trajectory of my life completely change. Like I was getting promotions at work, I was having more opportunities at my career, I was starting to get back into relationships again. It was a very, very big shift for me.
Wow. So that was around 26 years old when you started therapy. In those next couple of years, you started doing that. That's huge.
Yeah.
So you went
Yeah.
from being angry at the religion, which I think is definitely a stage in the religion, the guilt, the shame, the fear, and just anger toward the religion. And then you started going to therapy. Then you were in these self-development courses. And during this time, what was the relationship you had with your parents and with your siblings? So you had your brother and sister who were still witnesses, your dad who was still an elder, your mom who was still in supporting your dad. What was the relationship like? And you weren't, since you weren't disfellowshipped or publicly reproved, were you talking to them? Were you visiting them in the years that you were living in New York?
Yeah. So during that time, I thought it was so great because I was like, oh, I'm in this gray area. Like I'm not disfellowshipped, so
Exactly.
they can still talk to me technically. But realistically, what happened is, because my parents, they're very devoted to the religion. They really are believers. So for them, I think it became a conscience matter where they thought, well, you're not disfellowshipped, but it's clear that you've turned away from the religion. So through my 20s, it got to a point where they didn't really reach out to me. So the relationship I had with them was very much based on me calling them. So I don't want to say on a regular basis, but I would definitely keep up with them and just let them know how work is, very basic things. How's work? How's your health? Financially, are you okay? And that went on for quite a few years until I was in my 30s. But then I got to a point in my 30s. I mean, it was probably about, I don't know, 5 years ago now, probably about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, maybe, where I just thought for me, for my values, my ethics, I thought that lacked integrity. Because I thought, here I am, like living this life, a very liberated life, authentic to myself, um, where I really encourage people, and at this point too, I had been in management and leadership for years. Since I was 26, I had been in management and leadership positions, training positions at work. So, I really talk to people about their values and their ethics and having values with your work and having integrity with what you do. And for me, that integrity really goes back to being whole and complete with my word, so that meant a lot to me. So I realized, I was like, there's a gap here for me. There's a gap that I need to bridge because I have this relationship with my parents where they don't really know who I am. They don't know what's going on in my life. They never know if I'm dating someone or who I'm dating. They don't know what my beliefs are to this day. They just know, is my health okay? Financially, am I getting by? And how is the weather? And I thought, and it was kind of like I thought that that was the best situation that I could have. I was like, this is great, right? Because I still talk to my parents. Like, they don't call me, but if I call them, they'll pick up. So I got to the point 5 or 6 years ago where I went and visited them. And I said to them,
5 or 6 years ago, I'm gonna stop you right now. Remind me, how old are you?
so I'm 38.
38. So you were about 33 years old at this time. So
Yeah.
it had been about 13 years since you moved out. You moved out at 20, and now you are at 33 years old. You're living in New York still?
Yes. At the time I was living in New York. Yep.
Okay. So
Yep.
in that 13 years, did you ever go back to Michigan and visit the family?
Yes. So I would go back and I would see them probably, I don't know, I want to say probably twice a year. I would see them. And it was very brief visits. I would go to their house and it would but I might have stayed for maybe an hour.
Okay. Same thing with Aaron and Brianna and Jonah.
Actually, I've had very little relationship with Aaron and Brianna. My middle brother and sister. It was kind of like I would maybe happen to see them sometimes if they were at my parents, or at a family wedding or a family funeral. I would see them, but no, very very little relationship with them since I left the religion.
And your older brother, Jonah, you actually have a good relationship with him.
Yeah, yeah. So he's still disfellowship to this day. He's
Fantastic.
he's my rock. He's my rock. He's
I
amazing.
love that. I love that. So let's take us back to, you were 33 years old. You ended up calling your parents.
Yeah. So I went over to their house.
Oh, you went, okay.
Yeah. No, I was like, I'm doing this in person. I went over there and I said, I want to talk. I really want to talk to you guys because I've been doing some thinking, and I'm not satisfied with where our relationship is right now, and I want to change that. And I said, so what I want is I want to have a loving relationship with you where we have open communication and we can accept each other even if we have different beliefs. I said, so that's what I want, and that's where I want to start this conversation so that you're clear on what my intentions are. And I said, but in order for us to get to that point, I said, I'm very clear on who you are. I'm very clear on your beliefs, your values, your ethics, your religion, your religious beliefs. And I said, but you have no idea who I am. It's like, you don't know my beliefs, my values, my ethics. You don't know what's important to me. And I said, so I need to get that out of the way. I need to clear that out so that we can actually really begin to have the type of relationship that I'd like to have. So I told them, I said, I told them, I said, so I just want to be very clear because I've never said it to you that I don't believe in your religion. I absolutely do not believe in your religion. And I said, and over the years, I've, looked into a lot of different resources and read a lot of things about questions that I've had about the founding of your religion, about the founder of your religion. And I brought up a couple points like, do you know this? What are your thoughts on this? And my mom was not happy. She was absolutely not happy, not wanting to talk about it. Definitely got upset. And I said, okay, and I said, okay, that it is what it is. I just want you to know why I believe and don't believe, the way that I do and don't right now. And I said, I don't ever, and also I don't want to hide that. I don't want to hide the fact you've made it very clear that you don't support my lifestyle. So I want to make it very clear that I also don't support your lifestyle. And I said, but however, I'm still willing to have a relationship where I accept you and I accept that those are your beliefs and they don't have to impact me and my decisions. And I might not want to talk to you about your beliefs. I might not want to hear about them. And I said, but there's so much else to life other than our religious beliefs. And I said, so I want to first address, the elephant in the room, get it out of the way, and then, let's talk about life. And at that point, she's like, you sound like an apostate right now. And I said, oh, it's because I am. I said, and you think of that as you think of that as a bad thing? And I think of that as someone who's taken a step back, question what they're told to believe, done my own research on those beliefs, talked to other people about it, and went and created my own relationship with God outside of what your religion tells me my relationship with God needs to be. So for me, that's what an apostate is, and it's not a bad thing. And she's like, well, then if that's how you feel, then we can't have a relationship. And
so
I was like,
it was more your mom talking, not your dad.
So at this point, it was separate conversations. My dad was outside working on his car. My mom was
Okay.
inside. So I started by talking with her. And so I said, okay. I said, that's your choice. And I was like, it makes me really sad. And I said, and I can't imagine being a parent and having to make that decision. And if I had to, I wouldn't make the same choice as you. I said, but it's your choice to make. So I said, I would love it if you will just give me one last hug. And we hugged and just cried, both of us.
Gosh.
And so I walked outside after that and then started that same conversation with my dad. My dad is extremely intellectual. My dad is very, 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 very smart, very book smart. I would never try to challenge his smarts, his knowledge, his references. Um, so it was interesting because the vibe of the conversation was so different. Like my dad literally, I came out, he's working on the car and he's like, oh, why don't you, it was so funny. Like it was a test from the universe. Like I felt like I was 5 years old again. Because he was like, oh, why don't you hold the flashlight for me? Meanwhile, like I had literally just like given my mom like our last hug, that I thought would be our last hug and was crying. And I'm like, no, I need to talk to you. And he's like, okay. And he steps away from the car and pulls up two lawn chairs and sits down. And he's like, okay, let's talk. So, we chatted for a little bit. And I even asked him, I'm like, when did you know I was gay? And he's like, I knew when you were 6. He's like, and that's why I tried to get you into sports.
Wow.
I was like, okay. I was like,
Wow.
sports doesn't equal straight, but okay. That's fine. That's what it is. No problem. So we had a conversation, and with my dad, it's just he's so full of Bible knowledges and references. He can refute anything, anything. So it finally got to the point where, I think it finally got to the point where I was like, okay, this conversation is not going anywhere. When I said something about like, you and you make, you cut people out of your life. Like you turn away from your own family members. I'm like, and I don't believe that's very Christ-like. I don't believe that's very Christian. I don't believe that's what Jesus would have done. And he's like, well, there's a scripture that says blah, 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 blah. And I was like, there's a scripture that says that in your Bible that was interpreted from another language by people with their own agenda. I said, so I don't believe that. I have my own relationship with God, and my relationship with God comes from love. And cutting off your family members because they don't believe the same thing as you is not love. And you may think it is, but I know it's not. And all I need is my relationship with God in my heart. I don't need a religion to tell me I'm right or wrong about that. And I said, so I just wanted to get clear about who I am, be very clear about the relationship I want with you and mom, and make sure everyone's clear if we're not going to have that relationship, who's responsible for it, because I'm not taking that responsibility on anymore, so gave him a hug and left. And it was intense. I remember driving away and crying and laughing. It was like a hysterical moment where I felt so free. I experienced an intense emotional freedom and power in that moment where I was like, you don't define me. I'm not afraid of you. I'm not afraid of your religion. Your religion holds no power over me anymore. I feel like that was like the final breaking of the bond and the chains with that religion.
Wow. Wow. So that was 5 years ago. And what has the relationship like been between now and then?
So we don't talk anymore.
Okay.
We're like, I stopped calling them. They don't call me ever. The last contact we had was, well, The last real contact we had was about a year ago when I told them I was getting married. And I said, I just want to reach out and tell you that I'm getting married because I want you to hear it from me before you hear it from anyone else. I said, and before I make any kind of announcement on social media and anyone else knows, I want to make sure you know first. So if anybody's got anything to say, you're prepared, however you need to be prepared. So, I said, I'm getting married, blah, blah, blah. My dad asked me like 3 questions. It was just kind of like, okay, so, what's his name? Just like very like safe questions, nothing deep. They definitely weren't like, we should meet him. No, it was like, okay. Like, and then I followed up and I said, I'm going to, because I got married during the height of the pandemic in Brazil. So I knew the majority of my friends and family from the States weren't going to be able to come. So I hired a videographer who was going to live stream the wedding and do like a live stream YouTube link. So I reached out to my parents and I said, hey, just so you know, there is going to be a private live stream link for the people who can't attend the wedding. And I just wanted to share the link with you in case you're interested in watching it. No response. Zero. Zero reply. Nothing. Absolute silence.
Wow.
So I was like, okay.
And did you send it to your siblings, Aaron and
No.
Brianna, that were in the witnesses? And
No, I don't
Jake and Aaron has 2 kids,
Yeah.
correct? How old
Yeah.
are the kids, and have you met them before?
I have met the kids. It's been a few years since I've seen them. If those kids saw me, they wouldn't even know who I am. They would have no clue who I am. So it's been a few years. The last time I saw the kids, I think, was at a family funeral, maybe 3 years ago. And honestly, I don't even know how old those kids are. Maybe like 7 and 9. Probably somewhere in there, maybe 6, 8 years old, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's really sad.
Yeah, it is because
it's common.
Like, my best friend that I grew up with in the religion, who's disfellowshipped now, and we're still best friends to this day. She has 2 kids who are 10 and 13. I love those kids. I adore them. I have a savings account for them. They don't know it yet, but when they graduate high school, I'm going to have a college fund set up for them. Every time I go back to Michigan, I make time to spend time with those kids. I give them my undivided attention. I play games with them. I call them regularly. Like, now they both have like Facebook Messenger for kids. So like, I'll call them. So it is sad to me that I don't even have any relationship with my niece and my nephew, because I would love to. But it's not the time. And who knows, maybe when those kids are 18, maybe they'll need an uncle to escape to. And I'll be here for them.
And not Uncle Brianna's husband, Andy, because no. I mean, it's I wonder if, are they close to your older brother that's not a witness? Jonah?
No. Jonah
okay.
has no relationship with them either.
Wow. Okay. Really divided.
That's gotta be really tough, because he literally lives not even maybe an eighth of a mile away from them. I mean, they live like 4 blocks away from each other.
Oh my gosh. So ridiculous. Wow. So you got married in 2020 to a Brazilian man. 2021. So how did you meet your husband, and how was the wedding like?
So I met my husband on a work trip. It was my first time ever coming to Brazil. And so I was leaving Brazil to go back to New York on a Sunday. So it was Saturday, the day before I was leaving. And I was at a cafe with some friends getting up to leave, and we were going to go to the supermarket directly across the street from the cafe. So as we're getting up, finished paying, I see my husband walking across the street, and I was like, hey, like, I like checking him out. And he noticed that I was checking them out. Like he looked across the street and happenstance had it where he and his friends walked into the grocery store that I was going into right before us. So I walk in with my friends. He's in front of us with his friends. He hears like the sliding doors open and he turns around and sees me. And at this point, I was just like, totally like just smiled like, um, and so, he smiled back. And then I was in one of the aisles, like I was in the cheese aisle, like literally picking out cheese. And I see him and his friends turn down the aisle. His friends all gathered around him, talk, talk, talk. And then they all took off and he was just standing there. So he walked up to me and then we just started talking from there. And we ended up exchanging numbers. And I was like, well, I'm leaving the country tomorrow. And I was like, I'm going to be hanging out with my friends tonight. So I was like, so maybe, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm like, we could get a coffee tomorrow morning if you want. And he was like, I would love that. So we had a little coffee date that morning. And I found out that so that was in Sao Paulo. And he didn't live in Sao Paulo. His friends asked him 1 week before, let's go take a trip to Sao Paulo next weekend, just for the weekend. And he was like, I don't know, I have to take off work, blah, blah, blah. They're like, come on. So he was like, okay. So we were both in Sao Paulo at the same time, neither of us living there, met at a freaking supermarket of all places. And so we had a really, really cute coffee date and just like talked. And then we video chatted every single day after that until I came back to Brazil about 6 weeks later. And then we actually spent a few days together. And then it was just, it was now it's been like 3 years of figuring it out. So for the moment, I'm living in Brazil. We're here living together, married in Brazil, and figuring out what the next steps are.
Wow. And you're working for an American company and are able to live in Brazil.
Yeah, that's why I don't know how long this will last. I'm literally talking to lawyers to figure out the tax implications and possibilities of this. But we're gonna figure it out. I don't know. So I don't like one day to the next. I don't know where I'm gonna be living, but in the meantime, my gosh, I'm enjoying life so much, so much. And I think that's one of the most important messages for me is, when I talk to people who used to be in the religion, a lot of times there's a lot of doom and gloom and anxiety and sadness and depression and regret and anger. And I know from my own example, it doesn't have to be that way. But I've done a lot of hard work to get to this point, a lot of hard emotional work, personal development, transformation, a lot of books, therapy, and sharing, like talking about it, which is really hard sometimes. But the hardest emotional things bring me the most emotional freedom. That's what I found. So I'm very fortunate.
Absolutely.
I'm very
Absolutely.
fortunate to have trusted that process and trusted myself. And it's hard because even doing this interview, when you first asked me, my very first thought was no. I was like, nope, no, I'm not going to do that. And then I'm like, why not? I asked I questioned myself. I'm like, well, why not? What's my fear behind it? What's my concern? And then in my mind, I'm like, well, I don't want to make my parents look bad. I don't want to make my parents sound bad. And then I'm like, I'm not going to. I was like, I can share a story, and if people watch this interview, they will have their own conclusions they draw from it, their own judgments, and that's their own judgments and their own conclusions. I absolutely do not agree with a lot of the things my parents have said to me, with the things that they've done. I don't agree with their choice to be in the religion, but I only hold love for them. I love them, and if they called me tomorrow and said, we realize this religion is just absolutely wrong, and we're so sorry about the years that we've missed with you. Oh my God, what? I would be so happy and like, in a second without, I don't need an apology. Like, let's, whatever years of life you have left, like, let's enjoy it. And I don't think that's going to happen. I definitely don't think that's going to happen. But the message for me to other people who might be thinking about leaving the religion, or maybe who have left and who are stricken with anxiety and depression, is first of all, you've got to relinquish that belief that it's the truth. That is mind control, that is manipulation, that they even call it the truth. So it's hard because I also know a lot of people who are out of the religion, but mentally they're a little bit in. They still carry those beliefs and that fear. And I let go of that fear, which has also been awesome because for me, I kind of think to myself, okay, so if this is my one chance, if this is my life, if God destroys me and doesn't resurrect me, okay, what am I going to do with this opportunity? What am I going to do today? What am I going to do with the relationships that I have? What am I going to do with this beautiful world that is out there for me to explore? What am I going to do with the amazing people that I could meet and spend time with? And I make the most of it. I make the most of it. And yes, I have moments of anxiety that creep in. I have moments of depression. I have moments of self-sabotage in my relationship that stem from the beliefs I was taught growing up. And I constantly do the work. Like right now, I'm literally I'm still reading books right now and doing the worksheets in the books to really take out. I journal every morning. I write 3 pages of whatever's on my mind every morning. I'm reading a book right now called The Artist's Way, which is really
Love that book.
Oh, did you read it?
Yes, love it.
Oh my God, it's already
book.
tearing me back open again, but in a good way, to really build me up. So my hope is that everyone who's left that religion or who's been kicked out of that religion is that they find their own emotional freedom and live a life that they love, because it is absolutely possible.
Wow. Thank you so fucking much, Jacob. The story was absolutely amazing. And as I mentioned in the beginning, before we even started, you're really thriving in life. And I really want to focus on going from being a survivor from when you were like 20, 21 to now you're really thriving. But it does take time and it does take a lot of work. And then you have to be ready to, some people just want to rush it. And you've really, really shown this example by here you are 17 years later after you left your house to really live your life. And now you're really fulfilling. And 2, a lot of people are still holding on to that hope that, oh, maybe they will come back to me and we'll have that relationship. But I love the fact that you said, I've released that hope of my parents coming back into my life. But if they do, I'm willing and ready to accept them, which is huge. You have to go through the grieving process of letting them go because you don't have control of them. You only have control of yourself.
I'm very glad you said that, because for me, it was that moment when I had that conversation with them where I was like, no, you're not going to tell me that you're not going to have a relationship with me. It's more like, if that's your beliefs, then it is a mutual agreement. I'm not sitting here hoping, waiting, maybe I can be good enough one day for you to have I'm like, no, this is my boundary. This is my boundary. Like, and if you aren't willing to meet me halfway there, okay, then I'm complete. And for me, it was so important for me. I feel like I've completed that relationship with my parents. If they passed away tomorrow, I will have absolutely no regrets. No regrets. I feel complete. Like, to me, it's almost as if they are already dead, because for me, it's complete and I don't have an urge to pick up the phone and call them. And it's not out of spite. It's not out of anger. It's out of like emotional freedom. It's out of my own boundaries. It's out of just, what more am I going to get out of that relationship? You know, they're both just retired, and the only thing their life revolves around right now is the religion. So even if I were to talk to them, it's just talking about the religion, and I don't want to hear about it. Not interested in hearing about it at all. You know, so for me, it was so critical that I completed that relationship with them, and I did. And you know, it's been amazing. It's been amazing and freeing.
I'm right there with you. And grief is not just about actually death. it's about the loss. So actually going through the process of grieving, which is so essential to let somebody go. And like you said, for me too, I feel like my parents are already dead, even though they're still alive, they don't speak to me. That actually is very liberating. It opens up a space in your heart where if they do come back, like you said, they can come, you can come back into your life with a different kind of mindset and a different kind of energy than, oh, if they just for them to love me and accept me and blah, blah, blah. It's just like a completely different energy. So yeah, I just really, really connected when you said that. So thank you again. I would love to share where people can find you and all that in the links below. And I think you did
Sure.
say an ending message. Anything else that you wanted to say before we end this beautiful interview?
Just, I mean, really to reiterate and drive the point home that anyone who's questioning themselves, their lives, anyone who might be contemplating suicide, anyone who doesn't think that they're worth anything, that they don't have value, anyone who's still torn, put up your own boundaries. Find your own worth. Your worth is not in a religion. It is not in a false god that you've been prophesied to believe in. The world is a beautiful, beautiful place, and there's incredible nature and people out there, and there are incredible opportunities out there. You know, as witnesses, we were discouraged from ongoing education, and I'm really, really fortunate that I have had a thriving career. You know, I've been a C-level employee, you know, a chief level employee in my company for years now. I've had the opportunity to work as a CEO for a couple of years. I'm currently a global director in my company. I've worked with celebrities. I've worked for TV shows. I've done magazine editorials as a makeup artist. I've been in business management, leadership, director positions for the past 12 years of my career. I'm happily married. I have an incredible open communication in my relationship and a lot of emotional freedom. And that is absolutely available for anyone who has left that religion.
Wow, kudos to you. And I'm so connected to you right now. So thank you so much, Jacob. My heart is so full with this interview. I really, really thank you. And I hope people can find just joy and encouragement and insight from this interview. So thank you again. I really would like it. I am going to stop this recording right now.